I said, if I were going to direct a film, he became one of my two producers, Diane Perlman and Brian Long is his name, to actually launch the film out into the world as a feature film or whatever.
The world remembers Karen Allen as Marion Ravenwood, the woman who dared to challenge Indiana Jones, outdrank men at the table, and stole the spotlight from Harrison Ford himself. Yet few realized that behind that radiant smile lay a life marked by sacrifice and quiet tragedies. She once nearly lost her sight after a role, gave up the peak of Hollywood to raise her child alone in Massachusetts, endured a short-lived marriage, and then quietly vanished from the red carpet. From being hailed as one of the most beautiful faces in the world, Karen Allen chose to step away from the spotlight, finding solace in textiles and small theater stages rather than million-dollar screens. What drives a star who once held the world in her hands to let it all go? And was it truly a wise choice, or a tragedy only she could understand? Karen Allen was born on October 5, 1951, in Carrollton, Illinois, into a middle-class family with 3 daughters. She was the eldest, followed by 2 younger sisters. Her father, Carroll Thompson Allen, worked as an FBI agent, a job that kept the family constantly on the move across the United States. Her mother, Patricia Howell Allen, was a teacher who later ran a cosmetics shop. The mix of a stern, often absent father and a practical mother, busy raising 3 girls, left Karen with the feeling that she had to grow up faster than her age. The constant relocations meant Karen never had the chance to put down roots. At every school, she was the new kid, always on the outside of long-formed circles of friends. Her childhood memories are filled with strange classrooms and farewells before bonds could even form. In that loneliness, Karen sought refuge in books and films. She became a quiet observer of people, memorizing glances, smiles, and gestures, skills that later became the foundation of her remarkably nuanced acting. After finishing high school, Karen enrolled at the University of Maryland. But college life, for her, was a void. No passion in her courses, no future in a degree. After 2 years, she dropped out. It wasn't from a lack of ability, but from a lack of direction. Instead of sitting in lecture halls, she chose the open road, hitchhiking across America, taking odd jobs to survive. To many, it looked like rebellion, an early failure. But to Karen, it was an awakening. She learned how to survive, and, more importantly, that the world was bigger than any template laid out for her. Her journey eventually ended in New York. There, she enrolled at the Lee Strasberg Theater Institute, the training ground of legends like Al Pacino and Robert De Niro. For the first time, Karen was no longer the outsider. On the rehearsal stage, she discovered her own language, acting not as performance, but as a way of living truthfully. In that moment, her life took a new turn. After entering the Lee Strasberg Theater Institute, Karen Allen began to find her footing on small New York stages in the late 1970s. Her roles in experimental theater drew notice for her intelligent gaze, warm voice, and an authenticity that felt untouched by pretense. In 1978, she got the chance to appear in National Lampoon's Animal House, a raucous comedy about college life. Karen Allen played Katie, the clear-headed girlfriend amid a pack of ridiculous, chaotic men. It should have been a background role, yet the way she brought balance and humanity to the screen made audiences remember her. Animal House became a box office phenomenon, and Karen Allen, despite being in a supporting role, suddenly caught Hollywood's attention. Few realized it was also her very first film, one that included a brief nude scene. The moment shocked many as it placed Karen in a paradox, her natural, honest presence branded with sexy from her debut. But the harsh realities of acting didn't end there. In 1979, while performing in the television dramas Monday Before the Miracle and The Miracle Worker, Karen Allen portrayed a blind woman. Her immersion in the role, compounded by underlying health issues, led to a severe case of necrotizing gingivitis that temporarily blinded her. The shock nearly buried her fledgling career. For an actor, losing sight meant the end. Yet Karen Allen persisted, enduring treatment, recovering, and returning to the stage. That experience left a permanent imprint. Ever after, her eyes in every role carried an unusual depth, as though holding a memory of darkness within. By 1980, Karen Allen was still taking small parts in television and theater, honing her craft with patience instead of chasing commercial films. That patience would prove crucial, preparing her to step into 1981, the year that would change her life forever, with a steadiness rare among young actors. In 1981, Karen Allen's historic opportunity arrived. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas were searching for a female lead for Raiders of the Lost Ark. They didn't want a decorative love interest standing behind Indiana Jones. They needed a woman who could match him blow for blow, even overpower him. Karen Allen, with her defiant gaze and intelligent beauty, became the perfect choice. Marion Ravenwood stormed onto the screen through the haze of a smoky bar in Nepal, outdrinking men before confronting Indiana Jones without flinching. Marion wasn't just a former lover, she was a scar, a flame burning on equal ground with Indy. The chemistry between Allen and Harrison Ford convinced audiences of a relationship that was tense, fiery, and passionately alive. Marion became one of the most beloved heroines in adventure film history, propelling Karen Allen to international stardom and earning her a Saturn Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Yet instead of capitalizing on the momentum, Allen chose to be strict with herself. She refused to be typecast as another action movie beauty. She sought roles with depth, a decision that proved her artistic integrity, but also planted the seeds of her career's greatest struggle. In 1984, she starred in John Carpenter's Starman opposite Jeff Bridges. As Jenny Hayden, a widow confronted with the image of her late husband through an alien being, Allen delivered a performance at once tender and devastating. She transformed a science fiction premise into a poignant love story. Though Starman was not a runaway box office hit, it became a beloved classic over time, with critics praising Allen for giving the film its heart. Next came Scrooged, 1988, a dark Christmas comedy alongside Bill Murray. Allen played Claire, the former lover whose warmth stood in stark contrast to Murray's bitterness. Once again, she became the emotional compass of the story. She also pursued smaller, more experimental projects, until September 1984, A Parisian Love Story, and The Glass Menagerie, 1987, a Tennessee Williams adaptation. By 1993, she appeared in The Sandlot in a modest supporting role as the mother of young Scott Smalls. With just a few brief scenes, Allen's warmth etched itself into the childhood memories of an entire generation of American audiences. What set Karen Allen apart was this. Whenever she appeared, no matter how briefly, she left audiences remembering her. But that same discerning selectiveness meant her name never blanketed Hollywood like her peers. While others chased million-dollar contracts, Allen quietly chose roles with soul rather than roles with money. Her peak came early, but slipped away quietly. And that marked the beginning of her greatest tragedy, being forgotten by Hollywood simply because she refused to play by its rules. If Karen Allen's career was immortalized by a single role that etched her name into film history, then her private life was woven from loss, sacrifice, and painful choices. It is here, more than anywhere else, that her true self is revealed. A woman who endured health crises, broken love, solitude, and ultimately chose to give up Hollywood's glare for a path that was lonely but honest to her own heart. In Hollywood, a place where love is often staged as fairy tales for the camera, Karen Allen lived by a different script. She never sought out noisy romances or remarriages to fill empty spaces, as many of her peers did. Her love life was more like a short melody, a few resonant notes followed by long silences, leaving echoes that spoke louder than sound. After her early success, Allen lived for a time with musician Stephen Bishop. Their romance was tender, without spectacle, but it soon faded. Between them, there was no room for the drama that so often defined celebrity relationships. When it ended, they chose silence. And in that silence lay a truth. Karen Allen never used love as publicity. She kept it as a fragile private memory. By 1988, at 37, she finally married. Her husband was actor Cale Brown. From this union came her life's greatest joy, her son Nicholas, born in 1990. But with joy came a cruel price. Allen realized she could not be both an international star and the kind of mother she longed to be. Lengthy shoots, faraway sets, lucrative contracts, she had to turn them down. She once said, "I don't want to raise my child on long-distance phone calls from hotel rooms." Behind those firm words hid a fear of losing her child to distance, fear of becoming a shadow in his childhood memories. Marriage, however, was not the safe harbor she had hoped for. After 10 years, Allen and Brown divorced. In 1998, now in her 40s, she faced solitude, taking her young son and walking away from Hollywood. There was no rescue from another love, no next man to fill the void. Since that marriage ended, Karen Allen has never remarried, never publicly dated. She embraced solitude either as destiny or as a shield against further wounds. Karen Allen's sorrow did not come from scandal splashed across tabloids, but from the quiet erosion of time and choice. Once hailed by Harper's Bazaar in 1983 as one of the most beautiful women in the world, once the woman who stole the screen from Harrison Ford, she disappeared from the heights of fame because of a broken marriage and the weight of motherhood. To many, it was noble sacrifice. But looked at closely, it was also a tragedy. She surrendered the light she deserved in exchange for the forced calm of obscurity. On screen, Allen's Marion Ravenwood was fiery, fearless, ready to face danger. In life, Karen Allen chose a different form of confrontation: to let go. She let go of incomplete love. Let go of Hollywood's wide-open doors and let go of the chance to become a living legend. What remained in the later chapters of her life was only herself, a single mother, a woman who had tasted enough heartbreak to understand that sometimes love does not save us. It only leaves deeper hollows in the heart. Even before love and marriage left her with unhealed wounds, Karen Allen endured another kind of tragedy, one tied directly to her body and her fragile early career. In 1978, just as she was taking her first steps into acting, she appeared in 2 television dramas, Monday, Before the Miracle and The Miracle Worker. both centered on characters with impaired vision, and Allen immersed herself in those roles with astonishing intensity. But that immersion soon unleashed a nightmare. During the process, the mental strain combined with her frail health pushed Allen into a severe medical crisis. She developed necrotizing gingivitis, a devastating infection. The complication left her temporarily blind. For anyone, suddenly losing sight would be a profound shock. For a young actress at the dawn of her career, it was nothing less than a death sentence. Had her condition lasted, there would have been no chance for Karen Allen to step onto the silver screen. No Marion Ravenwood, no heroine for audiences to embrace. By fortune, she recovered. Yet the experience of brushing so close to darkness haunted her for years. She knew then that light could vanish at any moment, that everything could be taken in the blink of an eye. From that point forward, Karen Allen's eyes on screen carried a rare depth, resolute yet fragile. Viewers praised them as authentic, piercing, but few realized that behind them lay the memory of almost falling forever into night. Perhaps that shock set her apart from so many of her peers. Karen Allen was never the actress willing to throw herself recklessly into Hollywood's relentless machinery, taking every role just to chase the spotlight. She performed with caution, with gratitude, as if every part might be her last. Her filmography may be limited, but each role bears an uncommon truthfulness. And yet, from another perspective, this too was a silent tragedy. Here was a woman who could have shone without limit, yet was forced to live with fear of her own body. That brush with blindness was not just a medical memory. It became a part of her inner life, a constant reminder that Karen Allen never truly lived in peace, even when the world saw her only as the strong and fearless Marion Ravenwood. After the wounds of love and the trauma of her health scare, Karen Allen seemed to realize that Hollywood could never be the place where she found peace. She turned her back on its relentless pace to build another world for herself, smaller, simpler, but infinitely more genuine. In 1995, she founded Berkshire Mountain Yoga in Massachusetts. In a bright studio with plain floor mats, Karen Allen was no longer a movie star, but a gentle instructor guiding her students through each breath, each posture. For her, yoga was never just about physical discipline. It was a journey of healing. After years of being forced to steel herself on film sets and in her personal life, this was the first time Allen truly allowed herself to breathe. She did not stop there. In 2004, she launched Karen Allen Fiber Arts, a studio devoted to design and hand-woven textiles. The scarves, sweaters, and knit pieces she created were not the side projects of a fading star, but a continuation of her storytelling instinct. Allen once said that weaving was, to her, another way of telling stories, threads and patterns repeating like the rhythm of breath. With every stitch, made patiently by her hands, she reclaimed the rhythm of life that Hollywood had stolen from her. Many saw this as proof that Karen Allen had disappeared. In truth, she never disappeared. She simply refused a life she could not control, choosing instead to construct a world where every detail belonged to her. While her peers fought to keep their names in the headlines and on television, Allen chose silence. And it is precisely that silence that makes her story more haunting. A star once celebrated worldwide, now sitting at a loom, finding herself in the weave of threads. Behind that image lies both pride and sorrow. Pride, because she saved herself. But sorrow, because to do so Karen Allen had to abandon the very lights that once made her name shine. Karen Allen's legacy cannot be measured by the number of blockbusters or glittering awards Hollywood likes to parade. She left her mark in another way, quietly but enduringly. First and foremost, in cinema, Allen immortalized Marion Ravenwood as one of the most beloved heroines in the history of adventure films. Marion was not a damsel in distress waiting for Indiana Jones to rescue her, but a woman who could fight, love, and challenge him on equal terms. With honesty and fierce individuality, Karen Allen redefined the role of women in a genre long dominated by men. It was no coincidence that 4 decades later, when she reprised Marion in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, 2008, and Dial of Destiny, 2023, audiences were deeply moved. She was the last living spirit of a golden age and living proof that female characters could grow with time rather than fade into memory. Allen is also remembered for the diversity of her performances. The grieving widow in Starman, 1984, the gentle lover in Scrooged, 1988, the warm-hearted mother in The Sandlot, 1993. She never chose roles to chase headlines. She chose them to portray real people. That choice meant her career was less noisy than others, but it gave every role a weight of emotion that lingers. Beyond the screen, Karen Allen left her mark in craft and education. Her studio, Karen Allen Fiber Arts, was no mere pastime. It became a respected brand in textile design. In 2009, she was awarded an honorary degree by the Fashion Institute of Technology, FIT, recognizing her contribution to art and creativity. She also directed theater, taught acting, and passed her knowledge to younger generations, always with a focus on the essence of creation rather than the lure of fame. Karen Allen's legacy, therefore, has 2 layers. On the surface, Marion Ravenwood, a rare female icon in adventure cinema. Beneath, the story of an artist who dared to reject the merciless machinery of Hollywood in order to live truthfully by her choices. In a way, her very disappearance from Hollywood stands as her boldest declaration that fame is not the only measure of success, and sometimes stepping out of the spotlight is the only way not to be consumed by it. In her 70s, Karen Allen is no longer a name splashed across film posters or red carpet spotlights. She lives in a small town in Massachusetts, where her Karen Allen Fiber Arts studio still opens daily, displaying textiles she designs and weaves herself. Visitors are often startled to realize that the unassuming woman carefully arranging scarves is the same Marion Ravenwood they once adored. Allen does not hide, but neither does she chase the spotlight again. She simply wants to be part of a community, someone's neighbor, a stage teacher, a craftswoman. Cinema, however, has never fully left her. Through the 2000s, Allen took part in several independent films: White Irish Drinkers, 2010, Year by the Sea, 2016, and most notably, Colwell, 2019. In Colwell, she portrayed a rural postmaster forced into retirement, a role performed with quiet restraint and aching subtlety. Critics hailed it as one of her most nuanced performances, a reminder that even outside Hollywood's glare, Karen Allen remained a masterful actress. For general audiences, her reappearances in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, 2008, and Dial of Destiny, 2023, were unexpected gifts. In Dial of Destiny, just a few brief minutes on screen were enough to move fans to tears. Marion Ravenwood returned, not as the hard-drinking young woman who once floored men, but as a seasoned soul, her gaze still fierce, yet etched with time. It was a perfect closure to the love story between Marion and Indiana Jones, and also Karen Allen's final farewell to the role that defined her career. Off-screen, Allen continues to teach acting, direct stage productions for the Berkshire Theater Group, and share her wisdom with younger generations. She still practices yoga, still tends her weaving studio, still nurtures a life of balance. Yet beneath all that calm lies the shadow of a woman who paid dearly for walking away from Hollywood. She gained freedom and peace, but lost the light she once deserved. And in her later years, among the slow rhythm of woven threads, one can still catch in her eyes a trace of unspoken sorrow. The sorrow of a star who once had everything, yet chose retreat in order not to lose herself. Karen Allen was never a star who blazed across decades, nor a name endlessly splashed across magazine covers. But that does not make her any less significant. On the contrary, it is the life she chose to live that became her strongest statement. From the immortal Marion Ravenwood to the raw honesty of Starman and Scrooged, to her decision to leave Hollywood in order to raise her son and devote herself to craft. Together, these form a portrait of an artist who refused to trade her soul for fame. The world admires Karen Allen for her authenticity, but also grieves the quiet tragedies she endured. Nearly losing her sight at the start of her career, losing a marriage after 10 years, and losing her career at its peak, simply to preserve her role as a mother. These choices leave audiences both awed and unsettled. Karen Allen could have been one of the greatest actresses of the 1980s, but she chose a different kind of light, smaller, more private, yet no less proud. Today, when we look back at Karen Allen, we see more than Marion Ravenwood. We see a woman who dared to step out of Hollywood's ruthless machinery to remain true to herself. That is what makes her story so moving. It forces us to ask ourselves, when standing at the crossroads between glory and peace, what would we choose? If you too feel the strength and sorrow in Karen Allen's journey, share your thoughts in the comments. Did she lose a brilliant career, or did she find the greatest silent victory of her life? And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next stories of the stars you love.